Good morning, Hallowed family. This is After Dawn, the show where we sit down to have a cup of coffee with the cast, crew, and creators behind the Hallowed Haven Studios productions. I'm Saul, and I'm joined by my co-host, Cyan.
Yes, hello, I am Cyan, and today we're talking about Chill, The Office, Episode 1, Mail Call. In this episode, we hunted some zombies, dug some dirt out of a printer, and, we also had to deal with HR. Just another day in the office. Honestly, I felt this episode was very funny and a great way to open the series. But my opinion is not the only one here. What are your thoughts, Saul?
I am very much inclined to agree. It's nice to see a game that can be so serious be taken so goofily, and I think especially we all needed a little more of a little more something comedic and lighthearted after several games that were a lot more intense and a lot more down to earth and heavily grounded. But mine is also not the only opinion, because today we're joined by a couple of individuals who are new to After Dawn, Tanya and Jade. Hello.
Hi.
Hello.
It is so good to have you both here. Welcome to After Dawn for the first time. We're excited to have you here, and especially in kicking off the new series for a brand new show. How do you both think that your first session went?
I think it went really well. It was a lot of fun. I'm playing Kayla Prophet, and she is an interesting character because I feel like she kind of reflects off of how other people act towards her a lot, and I feel like that's a very fun sort of thing to build on.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to agree. I play Genevieve, also known as Frankie Ashford, and it's a really good time playing this character, particularly in an office setting. So the first session was a blast.
Glad to hear that you both enjoyed yourselves. Tanya, I actually have a question about Frankie. Where did the inspiration to have everyone calling her Frankie come from, as opposed to just Genevieve or Miss Ashford?
Yeah, where did that come from? Good question. Actually, we got pre-gen characters to kind of start off with. And when we did the very first session, because the first one was only like a 2-shot, I think. And so when I got the character sheet and I created the character around the stats, really, I mean, this is a woman who's been thieving her entire life. I don't think Genevieve is her real name. I didn't get the sense that would be like what she was like born as. Particularly since I think she's from she is from Canada, so she could have maybe been Genevieve, but I didn't get that sense from the character I was building. So I figured she would probably have like a name that everyone would have called her if she had like friends. Maybe people like in her, thieving circles, things like that. And so I don't know why I came with Frankie, but it sounded right at the time. And now I don't think even anyone really calls her Genevieve.
Fair enough. I was actually going to ask more about how you came up with the idea for the acquisition specialists, and but if you was is that included like more with the idea of what she was like as a pre-gen, or did you come up with her wholesale?
No, so the pre-gen we got to choose. So we got to choose out of the pre-gens, and so I did choose a thief on purpose. So I did choose her on purpose. The type of thief I wanted her to be, though, kind of came from another character that I had in a older D&D campaign, who was she was a gnome and she was a con artist. She was like a con artist cleric type of character. And I found playing her really fun. But I played her very, very differently. She was more of like a like, oh, I'm changing my ways type of person, where she had been a thief in her past and a con woman, and then she, is now wanting to become a hero. But with Frankie, I wanted her to truly not have any issues with being a thief. Like, that's the fun part, is the thieving. So she doesn't steal things because she needs them, or even because she really wants them. She steals them because it's fun to steal things. So I did kind of come up with that as I was looking through the pre-gens, and I saw like a thief that could be, the ultimate thief. And I was like, yeah, that's a good character.
In that same vein, Jade, could you tell us a little bit more about Kayla? What were your plans, like ideas going into this as a financial investigator? What does financial investigator really mean?
So, a financial investigator is basically they look for fraud or misstatements in financial statements. And when going through the pre-gens, I saw that Kayla talked about her like finding fraud, and like she found a cult by finding fraud in that cult. And so that's kind of what got her started with Save. And it was I am currently going to school to become a financial investigator. So I really thought that it would be fun to try and kind of play her, and like a lot of her characteristics were leading into being like a very good like interviewer, being very like friendly and familiar with everyone around her. So I think that it's kind of fun to like lean into that sort of thing, and also into what I'm hoping to do in a few years.
Interesting. Would either of you really say that you guys have like special rituals that you do to get into character when you go into a game, especially like a new game?
I do not. I try to review the rule book. Preferably not right before the game, but just to make sure I am knowing like what I'm supposed to roll. But in terms of like the character, particularly for Frankie, I think, I am not a thief professionally, but I do think that her mannerisms and like the way she thinks is probably very close to the way I kind of naturally think and even like speak. Probably out of all the characters I play in different campaigns, she's the closest to me. So I don't really have to prepare much for her. I don't usually do comedy though. I actually do mostly horror games. So I have been for this game, at least like I watched the Office trailer that was made, which was so funny. I like watched that right before I hopped in. And then I'm trying to like get myself into, you know, thinking about funny things almost. So like maybe listening to something that makes me laugh or something like that. That's not what I usually do, but I am doing it for this game so that I get into the feeling of like this is going to be a comedy hour type of situation.
I don't really have anything super specific that I do. I kind of just look through the character sheet, see if there's anything that I feel like I've been missing in past sessions or anything I haven't really chose to like look too far into yet. And other than that, I pretty much just roll with it, see how things turn out.
Nothing wrong with that. I know it's only been one episode, but we're sort of setting the precedent here. How do you think your role playing of the characters is going, with it being something so new as opposed to a horror game being more comedic?
Well, I think I can probably speak for both of us when I say this is a continuation of the two-shot that we did, like, 2 months ago, maybe? And that one was probably more comedic than it was supposed to be because we were obsessed with our office, which is where this idea kind of came from. Like, we kind of created a whole culture around the office, and then the storyline took us into the field. But even in the field, we had created these interesting characters that were very funny and interacted with one another. And I think I noticed anyway that when we came back, we kind of all slipped back into those characters and the way that we interacted with one another, and that was really fun.
I completely agree. It was just kind of, especially after our original session 0 before the two-shot, we they were asking us about our save office, and it was supposed to be probably a 5-minute question to answer, and then we just kept going into it for an hour and a half and just building more and more just kind of dumb lore, and that's basically just where this whole show came from, and it's really fun to be able to do that.
Interesting. It kind of follows along with how HHS tends to make a sort of continuation whenever games are played in the same or similar systems to have everything be sort of in the same universe. So that's really fun.
Mm-hmm.
I know for the most part, HHS strives on White Wolf and horror themed games, but what is it actually like to play a game that is more comedically themed, even when in a system that seems to lend itself more to horror, but playing as people fighting that horror, and now just to take it and be The Office, if The Office was at a Second Inquisition black site.
For me personally, I have grown up kind of playing D&D and stuff with my friends, where we did play a lot more comedic games. They didn't really want to be serious. So it was pretty recently that I started actually getting to play serious games, and I feel like this is just kind of going back to when I was in high school and playing games with my friends in their basement, and it's really fun to be able to do that.
And I will say I actually expected it to be different, because I also kind of grew up playing games, but mostly horror themed games. And now I kind of almost exclusively GM horror games. But then I'm trying to get into more lighthearted type of games. And so I thought this would be more difficult, but it really wasn't. It was, I don't know, I feel like I got right into it. And it's probably because we have a really good group, and the story is so ridiculous that it really lends itself to all the shenanigans that we can get up to. Like, I was actually kind of worried that we wouldn't be able to use up 3 hours just being in an office doing office stuff. But we probably could have kept going, to be honest.
Yeah, I was like, oh, it's 3 hours long. I wonder how they're going to do that, and then it just flew by. I was actually listening to it while I was at my work shift the other night, and it just helped the time just fly by.
Yeah.
Yeah, same. I was kind of just doing some very tedious tasks, and listening to y'all play was real entertaining. But I do have a question for both of you. And while we're kind of talking about games, what would you guys say are your favorite tabletop systems to play in? Is it something you guys have seen on HHS before, or something you'd like to see done on HHS?
Right now, my very favorite is probably VTM 5. I am really loving it. I've only gotten to play a few times, but every time I just have a blast. I also really like Coyote and Crow, and I do still have a bit of a soft spot for D&D since that's what I grew up with.
Yeah, I say right now I'm in between Regency era Call of Cthulhu. I am itching to play a game of that, and I'm listening to a campaign of that right now. I'm so into it. And right now I'm also planning and GMing a game for Kids on Bikes, which I have played before, and that's really fun as well. So I think right now I'm in between. My favorites are those two.
Ooh, Kids on Bikes. I've heard of that one before. That's another horror type game, isn't it?
Yes. And it can be very fun, very lighthearted, but then it kind of does the slow descent into madness, which I do love.
From what I've heard, it's kind of like if you took, to reference something rather recent, Stranger Things, and put it into a TTRPG format.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I've actually been wanting to play that. I kind of got into wanting to play it after watching Dimension 20's like Kids on Brooms game. So I was just like, that sounds actually really interesting.
Yeah. Kids on Brooms is also really fun. I haven't played have I played a game of that? I don't think so. I haven't played a game of that, but they're very similar.
Makes sense. So I have a question for both of you as well. How does the person that you are kind of compare and contrast to the character that you play?
I feel like Kayla and I are kind of similar in that we both kind of try and reflect others' interests to try and like help make them feel. I don't know how to explain myself. I feel like we kind of try to like fit in a little bit with others by trying to like match their energy and try and help bring them up. I feel like we're a bit different though, in that I think Kayla is a lot more serious than I am, which kind of I feel balances out a little bit with the other characters in the group.
Yeah. I did mention before that I am a little closer to this character of Frankie, but I would say we're very, very different people. I think her excitement for like the thrill of the type of work she does and just like annoying people just to see if they'll crack. I think I can imagine that there is going to be a war between her and Karen because I don't think Frankie has ever come across someone who is able to put her in her place. And I'm not really sure what that's going to look like. So yeah, I would say me and Frankie are very different. She's a bit of a loose cannon. I already know it. As soon as she gets the right buttons pushed, she's going to lose it. That's not me. I'm actually the complete opposite. Really chill all the time. But I do put that part of my personality into her because she does seem to be chill all the time. That's kind of like a big portion of her personality.
Yeah, I can see that. So here's a fun question. In real life, would you both of you say that you think in your character's voice or thoughts, and what does that kind of look like or feel like?
I will say, like when we are in pause, so I'm just kind of listening to what everyone is doing. I tend to not think in the voice of a character. I tend to think about, are my character's motivations like applicable in this moment, based on what how I'm paying attention to what everybody else is doing. And then I will actually like have an internal monologue with myself about what Frankie would do in this situation.
I feel like I'm about the same way.
Fair enough. Everyone does things a little different. For example, I myself actually tend to think about things like as myself, but then I immediately sort of counterpoint with my character. Like whenever I was playing in Chicago Reborn, I would think about things like as a moral standpoint from my own morality, and then I would think counterpoint in Vincent's voice. If only just to like have more of a conversation, which can help bring out more of the character that I didn't even really think of when I first made them. But now that we've got everyone percolating a bit, let's start asking some questions about the game and the characters as a whole. So, Tanya, does Frankie actually have any plans for things she acquires? I know you said that for the most part she just gets things because she can, as opposed to even like wanting or needing them. But does she have any like actual plans for anything she takes, or is it all just to pretty much be petty whenever the Johns or Karen shows up?
Well, definitely pettiness is number one. But she actually, so I sort of hinted at Frankie's way of thinking about objects and the objects she takes in the scene where I'm given a what was it? It was a pen. It was a pen by Leroy. And then earlier in the game, Al asked me for the sleeping potion that we got from our last field assignment. And both of those things are in a secret compartment that only I can open that's in my desk. So to Frankie, the things she takes that she considers just things, this is just a fun time. This is just things I just like to take for no reason. Taking is just it's just a moment in like my daily routine at this point. Those things mean really nothing to her. She mostly keeps on to them, but if someone were to come and like clean out her desk, the only thing she would really care about are the things in the secret compartment. And she does have plans for those things. Everything else is just stuff that could be useful someday, but only things in like the secret compartments that she actually cares about are things that she knows will be useful for the future. And a lot of those things are things she takes from the field, like the sleeping potion.
I see. So it's kind of like a mix between function and just because I can.
Yeah, I think when she's in the field, she knows what is going to be useful later on. Like she is the type of person that sees use in things and people. Just naturally, because she's been doing this her whole life, and so she kind of just does that without thinking. And so she tends to take things of high value, but not necessarily monetary high value in terms of like what it could be used for in the future. When she's out in the field. In the office, she doesn't care about office supplies. She just likes taking pens because people find it really annoying. Or taking Post-it notes because they have to keep ordering them. That type of stuff, she just kind of does that for fun.
You gotta love an office supply thief. Definitely never done that myself. I can't relate. So I have a question for Jade, because I noticed while I was watching the episode is that like specifically whenever Kayla was talking to Karen, she kind of seemed to take on the same sort of affectation as Karen herself. So is Kayla trying to out Karen? Karen?
Yeah, kind of in a way. She's trying to kind of reflect back the same energy that they're giving her. And with Karen, she kind of decides to make it even worse, try to make her like maybe see a little bit of how annoying she is herself, and kind of just lean into like being as annoying as possible to Karen in the same way that she's annoying to everyone else.
If only everyone could have that ability of self-reflection.
Yeah, self-awareness is something that not many people have.
Unfortunately, that is the truth.
I actually also have a question about Kayla. I know that you touched on a little bit more about like how she got into fighting the cults by like finding financial fraud and stumbling on a cult that way. Does she just do sort of the same thing in the field? Is she like more of an investigator? Like, what is her role more in the field? We know that, like how we know Alfred has the gun and seems to be the more rough and tumble of the group.
So in the field, Kayla is very good at interviewing, and so she's very useful whenever kind of talking to people, trying to get information. Like in the one shot, they needed to know a lot about the like kids that were missing, and she would have been very helpful for like interviewing the parents, seeing what they knew, and keeping them like calm and trusting of the group while they were asking all of these kind of strange questions.
I see. So a mix of like personal investigator and damage control.
Yeah, kind of.
Fair enough. So, I actually have a question for Tanya as well. Is Frankie trying to actually be friendly with Alfred by calling him Al, or is that really just to annoy him and try to get under his skin?
Yes. I think there was a moment where because we have played this dynamic a couple of times, and this session we were really able to get into it a little bit more. But there was a moment in the session where he said something to me. I don't even remember. And Frankie just looks him dead in the face and just goes, "Al, you are my best friend." And I don't think anyone understands that that is true for her. It's a very one-sided friendship.
That's kind of sad.
Yeah.
Very funny, but mostly sad. Jade, Kayla seemed very against murdering Karen. Would there be like a particular reason for her, being against fighting a confirmed monster?
So one of Kayla's like kind of drawbacks is what they call it in the system is that she's very reluctant to harm, and so it causes her physical damage if she harms another person or someone that looks human. It can cause like quite a bit of damage, and so she tries to avoid doing any of that.
So it's a bit more. So it's a mix of mechanical and roleplay aspect that she just doesn't like fighting.
Yeah, Kayla does not want to see another person that looks human hurt.
I'm sure that won't be relevant in the future.
Yeah, not at all. Can't believe that could come up.
No, absolutely not. Of course it won't come up.
So I have another bit of a fun question for both of you, actually. How did it feel to win the bet against Alfred and find out that Leroy was just a bit of a savant as opposed to being a zombie?
I feel like Kayla was very satisfied with herself because she didn't believe that that save would employ any unknowns. She knew that he wasn't a zombie, and after like going through that investigation, I think she was very happy to be able to tell Alfred, "I told you so."
Yeah, and Frankie tells Al, I told you so a lot. So I don't know if I don't know if we've decided like if well, we have already decided the type of dynamic that Frankie and Al have. But I don't know if we've decided if like, I'll secretly like Frankie, you know? Like, and if he's kind of making these bets knowing that he's going to lose because he loses every time. And to Frankie, it's just kind of like, it's just another Tuesday. I don't think it even crossed her mind that she could lose. And she does that a lot because she's very good at what she does. And she truly believes that she can read people really well. So I think she's a bit arrogant in that way.
Well, at least we can say that she's a multi-talented thief with how she finds marks and finds things to steal.
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
All right, we have taken care of questions about you and about the characters. Let's go ahead and start spilling the tea, getting to some questions from a couple questions that I saw in the chat, and a few questions that are just fun and open the floor to both of you being free to ask questions of each other or to ask questions of us if anything comes to mind. We're going to start off with a question that I saw from our lovely GM, Scott, that he actually asked in the chat during the session. With all the chaos that the protagonists are planning, are they actually the antagonists?
Karen is the antagonist. We're in the right on everything, obviously.
I agree with this. There's no logical fallacies here.
Yep, sounds about right.
This group has done nothing wrong in their entire lives.
We know when we love them.
What are your guys' feelings about the chill game system? There, of course, no wrong answers, but I'd be interested to see if there are like any changes in your opinions near the end of the season, or after you've had more experience with it and time with it.
I really like it so far. It reminds me a lot of Call of Cthulhu, just in the D100 system and that sort of thing. And I kind of like the story behind it, like with the save and voice and all that. I think it's just a really fun concept for a system.
Yeah, I would have to echo that. I think it's so far really interesting and fun and surprisingly well made for a monster office type role play.
I don't believe that this was what the system was intended for, but it happens to work very well.
Fair enough. Tanya, we know that Frankie steals a lot of things around the office, and a lot of things on the field. But one very, very important question. Is she the person who steals food from the break room refrigerator? Or is that just too evil and too foul for even her to consider?
That's actually a difficult question. I think it's not necessarily because of the thievery, but you have to remember that even stealing other people's office supplies has a level of fun to it, because people don't know it's you. I feel like, would people know it was 100% Frankie? Well, yeah, because she'd be eating your sandwich at her desk.
I feel like she'd be eating your sandwich at your desk.
Yeah.
At their desk. Yeah, she'd be. So I think she only would do that strictly out of spite. Kind of like when she, when whoever told on her to the John that came over and asked her about whether I had taken the pens. I think Frankie is a very spiteful person. And so I would assume that most people know that what she does and they just kind of move along. But if you try to challenge her, I think then she would do something as spiteful as like probably eat your lunch that's specifically labeled with your name on it for like a week straight. Kind of like how she steals the coffee maker because they make really bad coffee and she wants store-bought coffee.
Y'all kill me, I swear. So, I mean, when it comes to office romance, everyone has to know, obviously. How much of a shot does Leroy have with Frankie?
He did give her the pen.
Yeah.
He did, yeah.
He did. Yeah, no, she's I think in the moment, and I don't even know if Scott knew this or he even intended for this to happen, but in the moment where I kept saying, like under my breath, like, oh my God, this is so adorable. That was Frankie. She was fully into the whole situation because to her, remember that the whole time she kept making the comment that she thought he was just committing mail fraud. Obviously, he's not a zombie. That's ridiculous. He's just clearly committing mail fraud. And he's probably just selling
Not
her
dead.
information. Yeah.
He's totally not actually a zombie. He's just someone who commits mail fraud.
Exactly.
He's just a felon.
Little guy that
Exactly.
happens to commit mail fraud.
He's
And
not
so, like,
that level of spicy. He's just the right kind of spicy.
exactly. Yeah, to Frankie is just kind of like, okay, petty crime. That's fine. And so the fact that they went down to like the basement and found like a hole and he lives there, she was just kind of like, first of all, this is a great hideout to stash things. Number one. Number two, it's clear that he's allowed to live here. So 24-hour access to the office. This guy, clearly, he's amazing. I don't think people understood that she was having all these thoughts while she was down there, but I was thinking as Frankie while that whole interaction was happening, and I was wondering if Scott understood that Frankie is totally into this.
That is
Did-
that is so cute. That is so adorable. Oh my goodness.
I think the best part about it is if Scott doesn't realize that Frankie's so super into it that now he's going to have to put Leroy in a lot more.
Yeah, because then he gave me the pen, and I was like, "Oh my gosh!" And it was like that must be a sign. And
oh
so,
no,
of
he's
course-
perfect.
yeah, because he understands me. So she was so excited to get that pen, and that's why she put it in her secret compartment. Because it's not like the other pens; it's a special pen that was given to her freely, knowing that she likes to steal. That's just special.
That's really cute.
My heart.
We're
My
all here
heart.
for Leroy and Frankie.
Yeah.
Let's ship it.
The office
So-
romance that no one expected, but everyone needs.
Oh
I think
yeah.
I was gonna be freaking furious.
Well, I mean, that's a bridge you guys can burn when you get to it. But as we kind of continue on, do you guys have any questions for one another? Any tea you guys want to spill about your characters? Is there any questions you guys have for one another, or any predictions you guys have for the game?
This is a safe place where you can have some light spoilers if you like, because
Or not.
or not. It's entirely up to you.
Well, I was actually thinking, because I know that you're gonna be off to your auditors conference for a bit, which I think we did talk about that in the session, but I don't think that's a spoiler. But I think I was trying to think of like what Frankie would do while you were out of the office. I mean, her paperwork is done, but I feel like we only saw like the tip of the iceberg of you guys' relationship. Do you guys like, or would Kayla be friends with Frankie?
I think that Kayla has like a very strange sort of friendship with Frankie where she acts like she's like such an inconvenience, but then she'll also do like everything that Frankie asks her to do. Like,
Yeah.
it's kind of, it reminds me of like a big sister, little sister sort of relationship where Kayla is so annoyed, but she's gonna do it anyway.
Okay. Would you, so I was thinking of like calling you like every day from your phone, obviously, because I'd be at your desk rifling through your things. But I was thinking of calling you while you're at the auditors like summit every day, but you never picking up. And so I would have to leave you really funny, weird voicemail.
I think that would be great. I feel like that is exactly what would happen.
I, for one, think that is adorable, and I encourage it.
I also wholeheartedly encourage it.
I have a question for Frankie. Will Kayla have 2 weeks worth of paperwork on her desk whenever she gets back?
Well, no, because Al has to do at least 2 weeks because he lost the bet. And you gave him all your paperwork or all my paperwork.
That's true. That's very true. Thank you.
So you should actually be caught up, with my paperwork. You might have to be, no one's doing your paperwork though. So you will have to catch that up when you get back.
Or here's just a thought: you could include Kayla's paperwork with your paperwork, and then Al has to do all of that too. Do you really think he'd notice?
There's a lot of paperwork that needs to be done. I mean, you wouldn't notice, right?
I don't know, would he?
All in good fun, but I also regret nothing if that actually does happen.
Same. I have no culpability. I was never here. You never saw me.
I feel like you're gonna have to try and see if Gary will notice if you include more paperwork. Gotta ask him.
Oh, yeah. I have a very important question. What's the intern's name?
I think it might be Shelly, maybe?
No, that's wrong. That's definitely wrong.
Yeah, I was
unfortunate.
Say Gloria.
Maybe it's Trinity. Trinity sounds maybe right.
No, that doesn't really fit.
I think someone called her Laura, so maybe it's Lauren. Maybe we should enunciate.
I feel like this might just be a mystery that remains unanswered.
The true end goal of the game is to figure out just who the hell the intern is.
One day we might learn her name, eventually, maybe.
Possibly.
Day. As well as what's going on with the records room. That place actually creeped me out. And I didn't know how long I was going to have to be in there, but I found it disturbing that the maintenance guy, I think his name was Roger, he must spend hours of his day in that place.
Well, think about the company you work for and think about all the sins that must be recorded there.
Yeah, no kidding. Actually, with Kayla as the financial investigator, she could probably figure out exactly where all the money's going, if it's going to actually keeping the office together, if it's just for stuff in the field.
Yeah. Or for other unenclosed projects.
I feel like there are probably a good amount of employees that are just left off of the payroll that you're not entirely... You just have to assume that there may be unknowns, because who would be working there for free, right? So Kayla's just kind of trying to avoid all of that financial work and focus on, like, other things.
It's like the stapler guy from Office Space.
I need my red swing-line stapler. He took it from me.
He's not actually working here. Don't worry, we fixed the glitch.
Are you gonna tell him?
No, we fixed the glitch. He's still working. Oh, God. Are there any other questions that you have burning in your soul for each other or for us? Or perhaps any suggestions you'd like us to ask good old Gary and Termite whenever they come in on the show?
I would love to know if um, Al also, secretly is Frankie's best. Is it like she thinks they're best friends and he secretly also agrees that they're best friends, but he just is pretending or like, putting on a face. Um, that's what she thinks. she
I mean, obviously the answer is yes, but we're still gonna ask.
The people have to know.
Yeah. It
It's
doesn't matter
essential
anyway.
information.
It's such a good group.
Yeah, I really love seeing how the group banter together. It's pretty much perfect for what people are wanting from an office sort of game.
It's you guys versus Karen.
Yeah.
I hate Karen in the best possible way. She's so awful.
I totally forgot about the flip-flop Friday thing. And when she said flip-flop with heels, literally in my mind, I was like, absolutely not. No. You take her off right now.
No.
Put those back where they came from us or help me.
Got sick. I was like, no. And then when Scott kept talking about how everyone was flip-flopping around, I was like, oh my gosh. I was literally visualizing the flip-flops in the office. That should be illegal. And another point for Leroy for knowing better. Okay? Because he's wearing shoes.
Except for, all the dirt he put into the copier.
Well, he's a gardener. He can't help that.
Yeah. He just has a lot of dirt and sometimes it gets places. Just what happens.
Exactly.
That's understandable, yeah.
It's true. How dare I suggest otherwise? Well, I think that will do it for everyone today. Thank you so much for both of you being here. It was wonderful talking to you.
It was great talking with you guys too.
And I would like to go ahead and thank everyone for listening. These episodes are dropped Thursdays at noon for the $5 plus tier on the Patreon. They're released to the public about a month later. Think about subscribing so that way you can be up to date with your talk news for Hallowed Haven Studios. Goodbye, everyone.